Amelia Williams was the 32-year-old daughter of a billionaire. From childhood, she went to good schools, looked really pretty, and had access to a ton of money. Her family owned a bunch of companies, so she never had to worry about cash. The one thing she couldn't find as an adult was real love. When she was 22, she fell hard for a smooth-talking art guy. He seemed perfect until he ran off with $500,000 from her bank account. At 26, she dated a musician who swore he didn't care about her money. 2 months later, he was begging for a huge loan to start his own music label. By the time she hit 30, she'd lost count of all the liars, the secret girlfriends she found out about later, and the guys who only acted sweet when cameras were around at fancy parties. As soon as the photos were done, they ghosted her. Now she kept telling herself, this time's going to be different. Amelia really thought Felix, her new man, was different this time. He doesn't come from a super-rich family like her, just a normal middle-class family. But he never acted weird when she paid for fancy private jets or expensive stuff. He never asked her for money or gifts. He actually listened when she talked about how stressful the expectations from her rich life were. When he suggested they spend a quiet week together at her family's cabin in the Lake District, just the two of them, Amelia got excited. She felt butterflies in her stomach because she really liked this guy. For the first time in years, she had real hope that love could be simple and good. While at the cabin, she even turned her phone on airplane mode for whole afternoons, something she never did before. Then, on the fourth night, Felix said he was running to the closest store to grab more wine. While he was gone, a message popped up on his phone under the pillow. It drew Amelia's attention, and she picked it up to check. It came from a contact Amelia would later discover to be Felix's lover. Her heart sank. She went through the older chat and saw tons of lovey-dovey messages between Felix and this girl. It was the same betrayal all over again. She didn't yell or start crying right away. She just quietly packed her expensive Louis Vuitton bag with shaky hands, found the keys to the old Jaguar in the garage, and drove away. She had to get out of there fast so she could finally breathe. She couldn't believe she got played again. As Amelia drove, her eyes were full of tears that wouldn't stop. She kept hearing Felix's sweet messages to another woman in her head, words he used to whisper to her. Every memory stung. The family cabin, which was supposed to be their special hideaway, now felt like a place filled with lies. Felix had taken their main car into town to buy wine and groceries, so Amelia had no choice but to take the old 15-year-old car her parents kept in the garage. The spare key was still hanging on the hook, thank God. She didn't care how old the car was, or if it shook, rattled, or might fall apart while driving. She just wanted to leave. She needed to get away from all of it, now. The mountain road twisted sharply as she drove downhill. It was still wet and slippery from the rain earlier, and the wipers squeaked loudly every few seconds. About 15 minutes into the drive, her headlights lit up something moving, a blur of brown fur. A deer was running across the road. Amelia gasped and slammed the brakes. The car swerved, spinning out of control, the tires screeching painfully against the wet road. Before she could steady the wheel, the car slammed into a tree with a loud, crushing bang. Her head snapped forward, and a sharp pain shot through her ribs and leg. Her vision blurred. She could only think one desperate thought. Please, someone help me. Anyone. Cars sped down the road, but none of them slowed down. The rain had begun pouring again so heavily that no one wanted to stop. 20 long minutes passed after the crash before a beat-up blue pickup truck appeared through the heavy rain. 38-year-old Peter was driving. He looked tired, his eyes droopy, his work boots still muddy from the weekend. In the back seat were his 2 daughters. They had just spent 2 days at Peter's mom's house, spending time playing board games and letting the girls run around chasing the neighbors' sheep until they were out of breath. Now they were finally heading home, listening to old songs on the radio while the windshield wipers thumped back and forth like a slow heartbeat. Freya, who was 10 and always noticing everything, leaned toward the window and squinted through the rain. Dad, look, there's a car in the ditch. The lights are still on. Her 8-year-old sister, Reese, full of energy even when tired, crawled closer to Freya. Someone might be stuck in there. Daddy, please stop. Peter's chest tightened. He hit the brakes hard. While all the fancy, expensive cars had rushed past without a second thought, Peter was already pulling the handbrake and jumping out of the truck. "Stay inside, girls," he shouted. His boots splashed in the muddy water as he ran toward the crashed car. It was definitely an accident. He checked around quickly. No signs of fire, no smoke. That was good. He grabbed his phone and called 911, giving the exact location before ending the call. When he moved closer and looked through the cracked window, he froze. A woman was slumped against the airbag. Blood was slowly sliding down her forehead. Peter felt sick for a moment, but forced himself to breathe. Remembering the first aid class he had taken after his wife left, he opened the door carefully. "Hey, can you hear me?" he said gently. She let out a weak groan. My leg. All right, don't move your head. My name's Peter. I'm here to help you." He reached in and supported her neck with one hand, just like he had been taught. "If you can hear me, squeeze my hand." She squeezed, barely, but enough. Relief washed over him. Good girl. Stay awake, okay?" He kept talking in a calm voice, even though his heart felt like it was pounding out of his chest. The emergency operator had said the ambulance was about 40 minutes away from the mountain roads. Peter stared at the dark sky and the flooded road, knowing the rain would slow everything. He didn't want to leave Amelia waiting that long. He made a quick decision. "We're closer to the hospital than the ambulance is. I'm taking you myself." He slid his arms under her and lifted her as gently as he could. Amelia cried out in pain, and he whispered, I know, almost there." He carried her to the pickup and placed her carefully across the back seat. The two girls climbed into the front, squeezing together with wide, scared eyes. "Daddy, is she dying?" Reese whispered shakily. "No, baby," Peter said firmly. "She's strong. See? She's still breathing." He got in, started the engine, and drove toward town. One hand on the wheel, the other reaching back to hold Amelia's hand so she wouldn't pass out. "Stay with me," he kept saying. Amelia wanted to smile, but her whole body hurt. Every breath felt sharp and cold. Still, someone had stopped. Someone cared enough to help her when everyone else just drove past. She held onto Peter's hand like it was the only safe thing left in the world and forced her eyes to stay open, because his calm voice kept telling her she wasn't alone. 10 long, stressful minutes later, the old pickup truck slid into the hospital parking lot with a loud screech. Peter jumped out before the engine even stopped, waving both arms wildly. "Over here. Please, she's really hurt," he shouted. 2 nurses rushed out, pushing a stretcher. Peter helped them lift Amelia out of the truck as carefully as possible, then rolled her inside quickly. Peter followed close behind with the 2 girls. Inside the hospital, the sharp smell of disinfectant filled the air. Peter sat the girls down on the cold plastic chairs in the waiting area. A nurse walked up to him with a clipboard to get his details. She wrote down his name and said, "We'll call you if we need anything else, Mr. Miller." Peter nodded, but he didn't move. He wasn't going anywhere. Not until he knew the lady he brought in was safe. For the next hour, he paced up and down the hallway. Freya and Reese watched him silently. Then, finally, a nurse in green scrubs came out. "Mr. Miller," she called. Peter almost ran to her. "She's out of surgery," the nurse said. "She has a broken leg, a few cracked ribs, and a concussion, but she's stable. She's going to be okay." Peter's knees nearly gave out from relief. It felt like a huge weight had lifted off his shoulders. When he looked up at the clock, it was already after 9, way past bedtime. "Come on," he said softly, brushing the hair out of his daughter's face. "Let's get you home." They walked out hand in hand. The drive home was quiet. When they finally got home, Peter tucked the girls in, kissed their foreheads, and whispered, "You two were so brave today." The next morning, Amelia woke up to the strong smell of hospital disinfectant. Her leg felt heavy, wrapped tightly in a thick cast. Every breath made her chest ache like someone was squeezing her ribs. With a shaking hand, she pressed the small call button beside her bed. A nurse walked in almost immediately, cheerful and bright. "Good morning. How are you feeling?" she asked. "You're a very lucky girl, you know." The man who brought you here said his little girls would never forgive him if he didn't help you." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. Her throat felt tight and dry. She couldn't believe someone would do something so kind for her. "Could I please borrow a phone? And maybe do you have his number?" The nurse smiled and winked. "Give me a minute." A couple of minutes later, she returned with a hospital phone and a small piece of paper with Peter's phone number scribbled on it. Amelia called her parents first. The moment they heard her voice, they panicked and started screaming questions. They said they were flying out right away. 2 hours later, their private family helicopter landed, and her parents came into the hospital room. Her dad, with her mom, was close behind, and her older brother looked worried. "We're moving you to a bigger clinic now," her dad said the second he stepped in. Her parents spent time around her as she rested and waited for the doctor to finalize moving her. They checked every machine and asked the nurses 100 questions before they finally left to get coffee. As soon as the door closed, Amelia picked up the phone again, her heart beating fast. She wanted to call Peter and thank him. She had just started typing his number when there was a soft knock on the door. It opened slowly, and Peter walked in. He held his 2 daughters' hands. Freya peeked from behind him with shy eyes, and Reese looked excitedly. Amelia's whole face brightened. "You must be Peter. You came. I was just about to call you." Peter rubbed the back of his neck, his cheeks turning a little pink. "I'm glad to see you're okay." Reese ran straight to the bed. "You're awake. Daddy said you were super brave," she said proudly. Freya stayed close to Peter, then whispered, "We were terrified for you." Amelia reached out with trembling fingers. "I remember your voices in the truck," she said softly. "You kept me awake. You saved my life. All 3 of you." Peter shook his head gently. "Anyone would have—" "No," Amelia said firmly, cutting him off. "Cars passed me. People saw me. But you stopped. You helped me." When Peter leaned closer to look at her cast, Amelia reached out and held his hand. Her voice was soft but full of emotion. "I owe you my life, Peter. Say it. Anything you need, anything you want. I'll do it." Peter squeezed her hand back gently. "You don't owe me a thing," he said quietly. "Seeing you awake and safe, that's more than enough. Just focus on getting better." Just then, the door opened, and Trouble walked in right behind it. Amelia's entire family came marching into the room, each holding a cup of coffee. Her dad was in front, and the second he saw Peter, his eyes narrowed like he was staring at something he wanted to scrape off a shoe. "So you're the driver," he said, his voice cold enough to freeze water. "How much do you want? 10,000? 50,000? Just tell me your price." Her mom gasped. "Richard." Amelia whispered urgently, "Daddy, please." Her brother Tom crossed his arms. "We've seen this kind of thing before," he muttered. Peter didn't move, didn't look scared at all. He simply met her dad's glare and said calmly, "I don't want your money, sir. I helped because it was the right thing to do." Her dad let out a little laugh. "Sure. And I'm Father Christmas." Amelia pushed herself up, wincing from the pain. "Dad, stop. He saved my life. He didn't have to help me, but he did. You should at least show him some respect." Peter gently released her hand and stepped back, like he didn't want to cause more drama. "It's all right, Amelia. I'll let you and your family talk." Then he looked at the girls. "Come on, loves. Say goodbye." Freya's lips shook. "But we just got here." Amelia grabbed a handful of Peter's sleeve before he could turn away. "No. Stay." Then she looked at her family, her voice trembling but still firm. "He doesn't leave until I say so." Silence crashed over the room. Even her dad stopped talking. Peter didn't want to make things worse. He gave Amelia a tiny, soft smile. "It's okay. I'll be right outside." He walked out of the room, the girls following close behind him. Each of them waved sadly at Amelia before the door closed again. The moment the door clicked shut, Amelia spun around to face her family. Her eyes were burning with anger. "Next time you talk to him like that," she said, her voice shaking, "you will be the ones leaving." The whole room went silent. No one moved. Her father opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, but then stopped. For the first time in years, he had no clever comeback, No lecture, nothing. Amelia didn't fully blame them for how they acted. She understood why they were suspicious. Too many people had lied to her, smiled at her, acted like they cared, only to steal vast amounts of money from her. Too many fake friends had disappeared. But Peter wasn't like them. He had carried her out of a crashed car in the middle of a storm, soaked to the bone, scared for her safety, not his own. She wanted to believe he was different from everyone else. Her family, later that same afternoon, moved her to a more advanced medical clinic. Amelia didn't argue. A part of her was actually relieved. If she stayed in the first hospital, her dad would keep interrogating Peter, or worse, hire someone to spy on him. And honestly, she had already wanted to get away before the accident even happened. When the hospital porters rolled her bed toward the waiting helicopter, she suddenly panicked. She hadn't seen Peter again. Quickly, she pulled a gold-embossed business card from her recovered purse and slipped it into the kind nurse's hand. "If he comes back," Amelia whispered, "please give him this." The nurse smiled and winked. "Already planning to, sweetheart." Peter returned 3 days later, rushing straight from work. He held a small, cheap bouquet of flowers, the kind you pick up at a petrol station when you don't have money for anything fancy. He walked quickly toward Amelia's ward, excited and nervous. But the room was empty. The bed was gone. She was moved the same day, the nurse told him gently. Then she placed Amelia's gold card into his hand. "She told me to make sure you got this." Peter stared at the card all the way home. Real gold lettering. Her personal number. It felt unreal. 3 slow weeks crawled by. His daughters kept asking the same questions again and again. "Dad, is the lady okay? When will we see Amelia again? Did she get our get well card?" Peter never knew how to answer. He would just smile weakly, ruffle their hair, and say, "Soon, I hope." Amelia's gold business card sat on the fridge, held up by an old pizza magnet. Every morning, it stared at him like it was waiting. He typed her number into his phone 100 times, but always deleted it. What do you even say to a millionaire woman whose life you saved by accident? Then, one Friday evening, after a long and tiring shift, Peter got home, took a quick shower, and lay down to rest. He had barely closed his eyes when he heard his phone buzzing on the small table beside him. He frowned, got up, and checked the screen. Unknown number. Who would call this late? Still confused, he picked up. Peter. His heart stopped. He knew that voice, soft, gentle, familiar. It was her. "Amelia," he said, his voice cracking. A small laugh came through the speaker. "Yeah, it's me. I'm finally out of the hospital, and I swear I'm going crazy alone in my apartment." She paused. "Can I come over? Please. I want to see the girls." Peter froze, unable to speak. He didn't even notice Reese walk into the room until she waved a hand in front of his face. "Dad, your mouth is open." He blinked back to reality just as Amelia asked for the address. He quickly texted it to her. She replied that she would come by tomorrow. Peter barely slept. He woke up early and cleaned the whole house. Around 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. Peter opened the door, and his breath caught in his throat. Amelia stood there wearing a soft gray sweater and jeans, leaning on crutches. Her hair was in a messy bun, and she had no makeup on, just her natural face. She looked nervous, but also kind and beautiful in a quiet, straightforward way. She stepped inside and called softly for the girls. Freya and Reese were in the hallway. They froze the moment they heard her voice. Peter hadn't told them she was coming. He wanted it to be a surprise. Amelia knelt down slowly, wincing because her leg was still healing, and smiled at them like she had been waiting forever to meet them properly. "Hi," she said gently. "I'm Amelia. Your dad saved my life, and I really missed you too." Reese ran forward and hugged her. "You're so pretty." Amelia laughed, her eyes filling with tears. She loved how safe she felt around the girls and around Peter. She didn't have to pretend, act rich, or impress anyone. She could just be herself. Peter watched her, surprised. From what he knew, Amelia was a millionaire. Yet here she was, sitting comfortably in his small living room like she had always belonged there. Later, they sat on the floor, sharing pizza. Amelia asked about his life, and Peter finally told her everything. about the divorce, his ex-wife's departure 2 years earlier, and how hard it had been to raise 2 kids alone. Amelia listened closely, truly caring about every word. When she left that day, she promised she would keep in touch. And she did. Her visits became a regular thing. She noticed how hard Peter worked, taking small jobs to keep food on the table. She also saw the quiet exhaustion in his eyes. One afternoon, during one of her visits, she finally said, "Peter, I want to offer you a job. Drive me. Just me. It pays well, and the hours are steady. And the girls' school fees? My foundation will cover it." Peter stiffened. His pride kicked in. "I don't take charity," he said firmly. "It's not charity," Amelia replied softly. "It's payback. You helped me when I needed it most. Let me help you now." After a long pause, Peter nodded. He took the job. Months passed, and Amelia became a regular part of Peter's small world. At first, she only stopped by with bags of groceries, claiming it was extra food from her fridge. But soon, she started staying for movie nights, sitting on the old couch with the girls, wrapped in blankets. She painted little flowers on Freya's nails and helped Reese practice her spelling words for school. The girls adored her so much, as if she had always been part of the family. One evening, after putting the girls to bed, Peter and Amelia sat on the tiny balcony. They shared a bottle of cheap wine, the kind she probably never drank before. The chilly night air brushed their skin. From where they sat, they could see the bright city lights. Yet she chose to be here instead with a messy bun. "You know," she said softly, staring at the sky, "I run a company worth billions, but I've never felt this peaceful in my entire life." Peter rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. "This place is a mess. You're used to, well, luxury." Amelia gave a small laugh and bumped her shoulder gently into his. "I'm used to fake smiles and people pretending to like me. I'm used to threats disguised as jokes. This," she said, waving her hand at the tiny balcony and the rumbling traffic below, "this is real." They started spending more time together after that night. But not everyone was happy about it. Amelia's family hated the idea. They believed Peter was just another man trying to take advantage of her money and fame. One afternoon, Felix, Amelia's arrogant ex, cornered Peter outside the school gates while he was picking up his daughters. When Peter walked up, he stepped in front of him. "Stay away from Amelia, delivery boy," Felix said with a cold smile. "Find someone on your level. Because if you don't, your little girls might have accidents." Peter didn't back down. He stared him dead in the eyes. "Threaten my kids again," he said quietly, "and you'll need a new face." Then he walked away, heart pounding like a drum, but he kept silent. He didn't want to scare Amelia. When they met up later that day, she found him standing by the window, lost in his thoughts. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. "Nothing," he said, even though his eyes told a different story. She stepped closer, smelling like vanilla and rain. "Peter Miller, I know when something is bothering you. Talk to me." She had spent enough time studying his face. She could see every unspoken worry. So Peter finally told her what happened. Instead of panicking, Amelia held his face between her hands. "Felix is all noise," she whispered. "He won't do anything. And if he tries, he'll feel my full wrath. Don't let his barking scare you. He won't bite." Then, as if drawn to him, she leaned in and pressed a small kiss to his lips, soft, sweet, almost testing. They both froze, breath shaking. "No rush," Peter whispered, resting his forehead on hers. "No rush," she repeated, smiling. But from that day on, they kept choosing each other anyway. Amelia had money that could open any door in the world. But Peter had the steady heart she didn't know she needed. And in a tiny apartment filled with laughter, spilled juice, and second chances, two broken people slowly built something completely new. Something real, gentle, and finally theirs.